All right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Shawinta.
And today we are covering the Amory Wars, the Second Stage Turbine Blade, Volume 1, written and created by Claudio Sanchez, art by Gus Vasquez for chapters 1 and 2, art by Mark Miller for chapters 3 through 5, and colors by Rex Justice, and letters by Matt Ryan. So, I picked this book, and it was on the recommendation of a coworker. We recently started working together and have, found that we both like comic books. So, he suggested this one to me and lent me a copy of the Ultimate Edition that includes volumes 1 and 2. I decided to only choose volume 1, though, just because I wasn't sure, if I wanted to read a whole 2 volumes or not, since I didn't really know much about the story. And yeah, that's kind of basically why I chose it. And as far as what it's about, so it takes place in a fictional universe that's called Heaven's Fence, and it's a collection of 78 planets and 7 stars, and they're held in place by interconnecting beams of energy known as the keywork. This story follows Coheed and Cambria. There we go. Mm-hmm. And they're essentially like cyborgs-ish.
Well, they're an average family, and then it turns out that they're secretly part of an old experiment thing.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, at the beginning, they do believe that they are just an average family. They have 4 children, 2 younger twins, and then 2 older teenagers. And I think that's Claudio is the oldest son, and
Josephine,
thank you. And then
the older sister.
The twins, as we'll get to, I don't remember their names, but also
Maria and Matthew.
Oh, Maria and Matthew. Thank you, Talon. But yeah, so basically they are, Coheed, the father of the family, is approached by a general in the government. His name is Mayo. What was it again?
Mayo Defton Wolf.
Mayo Defton Wolf. There we go. And basically, he reveals to him that, like we said before, that him and his wife were part of this experimental team called the KBI.
Yeah, which just stood for their name. Mm-hmm. So there's
Knowledge, Beast, and Inferno.
Yes.
And Coheed's brother, who he hasn't seen in years, is Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
Who it comes out later is leading the rebellion against the main power structures of this place.
Yes.
Yep.
I would say we also should probably mention, because it comes up kind of subtly, not subtly, but I wasn't sure if it was actually part of the universe, but it's those angels, the prize, and the mages.
Mm-hmm.
So the mages are the people. They're the beings who oversee each of the planets. I think. Yes. They're who's in power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the prize are, they look like angels kind of. They're guardians who are supposed to protect the keywork from human intervention, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much what it is, how it's kind of put out is that humans are essentially just the working class, and then the mages are the elite class, and so the price are the just the enforcement class, basically. They
Okay.
yeah, keep everybody in line.
Yeah, and so Mayo Defton Wolf is the general for the mages.
Yeah. And so yeah, he tells Coheed that basically a doctor injected him with a virus called the Monstar virus, and a trigger within his wife, Cambria, the knowledge, to activate the virus, basically. And so basically they have to kill their children, otherwise they will spread the virus to the whole universe.
Well, particularly because they were, as they were told, they were spread. They had an evolved version of the virus,
Right, yeah.
called the Sinstar virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so the government was able to remove the virus in the knowledge and the beast, or Coheed and Cambria.
Mm-hmm.
But they had nothing. They had no way of removing it for this new virus.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically, they are Coheed is upset by this news and kind of tries to fight it, but
Well, I mean, of course, because
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the beast. But ultimately there's nothing that he can really do with this information except for what he's told about it. And so he comes home. His wife, it seems like her powers have now been fully unlocked, so she knows kind of the conversation that he's had already, and what basically everything that's been going on, and understands what they must do. So they kind of basically what they plan to do is kill their children and then kill themselves. And the general gave him a suitcase with vials of poison. So they started with that and gave it to the twins. And then meanwhile, the two teenage children are out.
With their respective partners.
Yes, yeah. One of them, Josie, right, is the...
Josephine.
Yeah.
Josephine. Thank you.
Yeah, her and her boyfriend go to a shady part of town and get attacked.
Yeah. They get attacked by just a gang, basically, that rolls up on them.
The Jersey Devils is what
Yeah.
they had on their coat.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, so basically then Josephine comes back home after that attack, but that's right after Coheed had just killed his twin children. And so apparently that seemed like a very kind of painful and long death, so he elects to kill Josephine with a hammer. And that right then, though, her recent fiance, comes in because, he wants to kind of help explain the attack that they had just been through. And, sees basically Josephine's father attack her. And so he runs out of the house, scared.
Did we mention that was her fiance?
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
I missed that.
So yeah, and then meanwhile, their son Claudio is also out with his girlfriend, but basically they accidentally stayed out too late, and he's really worried about getting back home, but there's a lot of traffic and stuff, so he is not there when all of this is going on. And I think that the military has been basically watching all of this going on, and kind of is okay, now we have to secure the site, and stuff like that, because there was a witness and all that stuff. And so yeah, they just kind of start get ready to like destroy the house and stuff like that. They apprehend Coheed and Cambria, I think, with just like knockout darts, basically.
It takes a little bit.
Yeah, they fight.
Because I think within that moment they kind of realize, oh, this was never about subduing the Monstar virus.
Yeah. And then, oh yeah, that's right. Also, so like there's a lot of like cuts to other stuff happening in the universe. The mage that is in charge of basically the emperor, for lack of a better term.
The Tri-Mage.
Yeah, the Tri-Mage. Thank you.
His name's Ryan, by the way.
His name's
Wilhelm Ryan.
Wilhelm Ryan. Yeah.
But they just call him Ryan, so they're like, Ryan is approaching, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. He basically turns a bunch of mages into like these like kind of like vampire-esque looking monsters.
Yeah, they become less humanoid. They become very monstrous.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the cleanup crew is basically there at the house, and they get attacked by one of those monstrous mages, basically.
Oh, and they're called the Constantine priests.
Constantine priests. Yeah, there we go. And then Claudio gets home, finds, his sister dead and his parents missing, and
he's able to briefly revive Josephine to like get an idea of what happened.
That's apparently one of his powers.
Yeah. But then he's attacked by one of those Constantine.
It's like Constantine, but without the C.
Oh, yeah. Constantine priests. But he's able to go through his house wall because he's able to become invisible and intangible. Yeah. And then General Deftonwolf, he basically makes sure that, because, that's right. Back when they were like, deceiving Coheed and Cambria, they wanted them to go to Earth, and specifically to the city of Paris, for like basically some sort of extraction of the Monstar virus, or
because that's where they were going to remove it.
And that way they couldn't infect anybody else, or cause another mutated version if they had more kids, I guess. That basically there's something else going on, some other reason that they want them to go to Paris. So they're in like, these isolation chambers, and basically he's like, if they wake up, basically kind of just like, don't let them take control of the ship. Like, even if you have to like, kill everybody on the ship, like that's better than letting them take control and escaping. Right. And then we jump to the fiance of Josephine, and he apparently has some sort of shady past.
No, he just knows shady people.
No, he has a past. They say the good old days. He used to be with them. But he gets a gun to try to protect himself from the Constantine mages. And then basically the Constantine mage is there at the bar that he's at. He, tries to shoot at him. His friend tries to help him escape and basically like kills him and kills everybody else in the bar. And his friend dies to the priest.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he does escape. Patrick.
Yes.
Who's the fiance.
Yeah.
Patrick, the fiance, escapes, but then he goes and tries to call the FBI to like get help. with what he saw, like the murder and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he thinks he's getting arrested by the FBI, and he's like, "Oh, thanks a lot. I call you for help."
Yeah.
And it turns out it was the priest in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes a monster and ends him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Then it's also revealed. So, is the woman in purple robes? She's like the other leader of the resistance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's yeah.
Okay, just making sure that I understood who's who here.
Mm-hmm.
Basically there's the Price or a legion of the Price show up, and like kind of confront her, and basically her and the Inferno, they kind of like tell the Price, like, hey, you should really be helping us. They're like putting people's bodies inside the keywork, like their dead bodies.
It's used to fuel it.
Yeah.
So, they're forced to work a bunch during their lives, and then even in death, they're used.
Yes.
I didn't catch this actually, but
This giant holographic thing they were standing in front of, and they talked about it, basically.
Yeah, I had thought that they were accusing the price of doing that, but
Well, I mean, the whole problem, of course, right, is that the Price are protecting the key work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
protecting the thing that needs to be fueled by human bodies, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, which like makes sense that they would allow it, but I thought they were the ones doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So.
No, not directly. So yeah, the Price kind of like consider their offer, or it's kind of an offer / threat, because the rebellion is like, yeah, we are going to go to war, so it's kind of like, you can help us or not, but we're going to do what we're going to do. Then there's like an actual like human looking priest who's listening in, not to be confused with the mage priests.
Yeah.
He's a monk.
A monk.
Oh yes, that's what they use. The term.
I see. I didn't catch that when I was reading, so. But yeah, then we get to see Coheed and Coheed's dream, which also, again, Cambria with her powers is privy to. Mm-hmm. And basically because like not everything that they were told about the Monstar virus was like completely wrong. They just manipulated the facts, so they were infected. And basically, though, the antidote that they were able to make was their daughter Josephine. And so then after that dream, Coheed wakes up from his stasis chamber and he breaks out. And basically they both break out, kill a lot of guards. And we learn more about the rebellion. Well, okay. So there's a lot of cutting back and forth a little bit in this plot, but that's right. So Coheed also, now that he's free, he kind of like figures out more that he is like part robot, and so he like shreds the skin and meat off of his hand, and there are wires that plug into his neck, and so now he has like a cool like electronic eye, and his hand can become a gun.
Mm-hmm. Hand cannon.
Yeah. And so they keep fighting to take control of this ship. It's a really big ship.
The Gloria Velvesa.
Yeah. And then meanwhile... Oh, go ahead, Shweta.
Well, I was just going to say, like, the point of it is right that they're trying to drag them to destroy the Keystone.
Or the key
using
work.
the Monstar virus.
Yes.
And,
that is presumably the plan. I don't think it's officially been stated.
Yeah.
Man, I'm thinking about, well, Mayo.
Mm-hmm.
Mayo Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
He gets demoted, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
he gets demoted, gets replaced by that one guy, Velar Crom or whatever.
Yeah, Admiral. Yeah, Elar Crom. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so Mayo gets sent to take care of the flies.
Mm-hmm.
The flies that are supposed to be free, and it's gonna like meet up with Cambria and Coheed. I don't know. Somehow those things together will continue the evil plan.
The plan was that they would be in Paris Earth, and the flies would then swarm Paris Earth, destroying everything, and so therefore destroying Coheed and Cambria, I think. So I guess actually their plan was a little bit more stated than I thought. So,
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, then Inferno, that's when Inferno comes in using the, like, resistance ship
Mm-hmm.
to try to stop them.
Yeah. At first he seems like a lot more antagonistic, like, yeah, I'm just going to blow you up. And then he's like, oh, wait, I'll give you an hour to see if you
to
can
turn around, to stop going on the path you're going, to stop the ship, because they can't figure out how to get it off autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And then when he gets off the comm, he's like, blow them up in an hour.
Yeah.
As an aside.
Yeah. And then meanwhile his her name is Maria. The other leader of the resistance is like, rallying the troops, getting them ready. They're going to fight for their freedom.
But because of the monk, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The Red Army of the mages descends and just starts blowing everything up of the resistance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. Also, back on the Red Army ship that Coheed and Cambria are on, they're trying to disable the autopilot. It doesn't work, and then Cambria gets upset about it and just destroys basically the ship core. Which is not what she was supposed to do.
No.
Does not help their situation. Also, Mayo, Wolf, yeah. He talks to a scientist, which, that's the flies, basically, I guess that we mentioned earlier. There's a bunch of
Flies wish to be free.
Yeah, a bunch of mutant fireflies, or at least firefly looking.
I think they were dragonflies, is what they said, or something.
Right.
Well, they're modified. They're like
Yeah.
injected with this and that.
No, I meant to say dragonfly. I was just speaking incorrectly. But yeah, then there's also the price, basically, like, I think based on what the resistance said, but also knowing about Claudio and how he escaped the Red Army, they decide that they need to go and send one of their own to be his guardian, basically. And Claudio escapes on, like, basically, I think it's just a trash ship. Yeah.
He just
Garbage
stows away
hauler.
on somebody's random ship.
Yes, yeah, it stows away.
The Guiled Griever.
Yeah, and then since Coheed and Cambria, cannot disengage the autopilot, I think that we're supposed to assume that the Inferno blows them up, like he said he will, and we cut back, because initially the story actually does start, 6 years after the events that we just described, and then he's kind of recounting them, I guess, and now we are back 6 years later.
Yeah.
And he's ready to rebuild the resistance and get revenge and all of that stuff.
Yeah. He being Inferno.
Yes. Yeah. So that is the plot and story of this book.
Yeah, 5 issues.
Yeah. So, what did you guys like about it?
I think that the premise was pretty good. Like, to me, like, you mean to tell me that these parents actually went through with that? I've never seen that before. Like, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Messed up, yes.
Things that happened got your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was surprising. I admit, yeah, that kind of got me a little bit too. And as far as you were saying with like the premise as a whole, I think that there was a lot of good stuff. You know, like just like there's a lot of world building. You could tell that the creator had kind of done a lot of thinking about, like, you know, how this world worked and its government structure and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the world in general. You know, in the beginning, it's kind of it looks like a pretty normal world because they look like they're like a suburban family, Coheed and Cambria. But as it reveals, like the legend of the prize, and then the mages, and so forth, you know, you realize what it becomes like a sci-fi kind of story.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty consistent with the world. You know, a lot of infighting and this, that, and each side gets their own say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I don't know if there's like, I mean, because yeah, pretty much there's not really a lot to me that like broad strokes in these 5 issues. Like I said kind of at the beginning, now that I know kind of how short in a way these 5 issues were, I'm like, oh, we could have probably read volume 2 if I really wanted to, but
I think reading this section was good. You know, a lot of the stories we read have like a lot of world building, but it's so much where I can't keep track. And for this, it was like I could pretty much keep track of it. Like I did have to write down a few notes here and there, but I was like, oh yeah, so and so, and like it's like, even though you said, you know, Inferno seemed a little bit villainous, antagonistic at first, I think like by the end, or I think the story's pretty clear and like this person's not great, this person's on the good side kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty clear boundaries.
I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I think too I liked some of the action, mostly once it got to like the, you know, spaceship battle, I guess. I would say, but yeah, I mean, I just think that was like, you know, kind of fun to look at. I guess that's almost partly the art, which is for later, but yeah.
I got a shout out to the Star Wars reference to this comic. I like.
Oh, what was the Star Wars reference? I'm not sure I caught it.
So when he was in the garbage hauler, he like it took off and he fell through like some hole, and all it said was, "Hey, as long as the walls don't start closing, I'm good."
Oh yeah, that's right, because they get in the trash compactor.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. I see. I didn't realize. Yeah, that was a Star Wars reference, but I can see it now. Yeah, though, I think.
And did you also think when you saw Inferno that he looked like Lobo?
No, I thought I didn't initially understand. Like, I knew that Coheed was like the Beast, but I didn't fully understand who the Knowledge and Inferno was, and like, yeah, I was just a little bit confused by that part until I like looked back through it, and I was like, oh, now I get it. And I see that their pictures are right there. You know, it's part of the projection or whatever they're using. Yeah. I was like, I just didn't initially see it that way. Also, their powers are pretty cool, I think. You know, honestly, like everybody that has powers, like it's a little bit, you know, different than, like, I mean, I guess like Cambria, you know, she has pretty like widespread but standard, like brain-based powers. She can see a little bit into the future. She's telekinetic, telepathic. Yeah, I think that's all of it, but also those powers are pretty buff, so
Yeah.
yeah, and then Coheed, at first it seems like all he has is like the blades in his arm, but he actually can like pretty much fight his way out of any like situation, or any physical match. And that's why like, he can create his arm into a gun and stuff like that. I think it's like pretty like, transformative as far as his body goes.
Yeah, despite the fact that he's called the Beast, I like the fact that it comes out as Cambria, who destroys the core there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. There are a few scenes of like surprise comedy considering like, the rest of the story. Like when Claudio uses the hammer to take out the Constantine priest, and then the priest like gets back up and like
holding the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of like we already said this kind of, but this is the first thing what Talon kind of said, were the suspenseful moments where they went for it. Like Josephine gets knocked in the head with a hammer, and Patrick walks in right at that moment.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Yeah, you really think, like, I mean, even I thought, like, I'd given up on things potentially being, like, saved or undone, and then Claudio, briefly brings Josephine back to life, but then it's like, okay, it's temporary. It's like,
the worry of being like, it's just back. There's no point in that happening. But like you said, temporary.
I definitely thought that when he brought her back, like they were going to bring the other two back as well.
Yeah.
The children aren't important. But I mean, if Josephine is the cure, the antidote, then they got to do something with her, right?
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think anymore because they're dead.
Yeah, but also
they gotta.
Also, like, I guess, how much are their kids robots?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, can they be like kind of repaired?
Did they actually make the kids, or were they just given the kids as like a fake memory?
So this is what I kind of pieced together, is that they somehow, in an attempt to cure the Monstar virus, actually got a scientist, Dr. Einade, or if that's how you pronounce her name, to give birth to a kid. So I think the kids, or at the very least Josephine, is an actual human being.
Did they confirm that she gave birth to the child?
It said that she dedicated her life to this project, including the birth of the cure, which to me is like an allusion to the fact that she gave birth to the child.
The word birth is an allusion to the birth.
Yeah.
I think it's an illusion.
I don't know if illusion is the right word. It's a roundabout way, I suppose, of saying that she gave birth to the child.
It's not a roundabout way. It's a straightforward way.
Okay, then. All right, then. Fine.
I said birth. I just interpret it as being like, gave it her all. Really hard project. But yeah, of course, I mean, to be fair to this comic, when it was made, pretty typical to be like, well, we made the scientist a woman, so she'll have to give birth. Project.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I liked about the comic, and also didn't like, where like it was clearly made of its time, and like even in the style of the art, I was like, oh my gosh, I am like brought back to this old style of comics.
Yeah, very 2000s.
It was made when was it made? Like 2007 or 6?
Yeah, I mean,
somewhere around there.
Because I think in 2004 the original 2 came out, but then they redid it again in like 2008, I think. and expanded the story, because initially it was only 2 issues. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very for its time, even in like the action and the plot.
Yeah. You talking about the scientist and her giving birth to, like, you know, the final project kind of thing reminded me of Wolverine's daughter X-23. Same kind of scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, Logan didn't give birth to her.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
but he's the beast that he had to cure.
They both got big spiky arms.
That's true.
Yeah. But at the same time too, like, I don't know, in the like flashback dream sequence, it's like confusing, at least, because they have like Coheed's heart in like a green cube, I think. And so, and then they deliver. Okay, so I agree with Talon. I think that Josephine is a human, probably. I don't think that that's what I thought initially, but looking back through this, and I think that Coheed, Cambria, and the Inferno, I think that they're all robots, like robots.
I assumed that they were once human kind of thing.
I don't know.
Maybe more of clones. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess there is, like, some biological aspects to them. I mean, for instance, they have at least a artificial heart and stuff. But, I think that they are more machine than human, and that they were created rather than modified.
Well, Coheed rips back his skin to show the metal. We don't see Cambria doing that.
I guess.
But also, I assume the only reason he did that was because the virus within him. Like, that's how I took that.
Really?
I thought it was the virus attacking him.
I thought it was because he, like, finally realized that he wasn't human, and so.
Well, he said it hurt and was like uncomfortable, so it's probably like, I don't know.
I get you.
He literally said like a Wolverine trying to chew through its own leg or something. Yeah. Which I felt was almost on the nose.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they all have the virus, right? So.
No. I only. Think, I think the Beast only has.
Yeah, the Beast has it. It was the knowledge that triggered it, and the Inferno was left alone, is what they say. Which, why did they leave the Inferno alone? I don't know. I guess didn't believe in backup plans. Yeah.
Yeah. I always question that. I'm like, because it says that the same doctor that created them and put the virus in there was also in charge of getting rid of them. I was like, why would you do that? You put the virus in there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were like mad at him for messing with the project anyway.
Yeah.
I think one part I did like towards the end was the prize getting to. Well, I was like hoping for them to do something before this, so when they were finally like, "Oh yeah, we should go help Claudio. Like he's a major threat to this whole thing. So let's get him on our side."
I was at the very least hoping that it would end with one of the priests like meeting Claudio. And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Wait, one of the priests? Like the...
Priests.
Oh,
prize.
Price. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, they said one of the prize have to, like, rip off their wings and become a human guardian? I don't know, just a guardian in general.
Yeah. They'll look functionally human, but they won't be.
Which makes me ask what Maria is, since she seems very similar.
Oh yeah, the girlfriend.
The leader of the resistance.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought that Maria?
Well, she's like remember the prize come into the room and she's just like floating.
Yeah.
Essentially like them, but without wings.
Huh. Maybe. Yeah, I guess I didn't.
She puts on the robe.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's actually a good point that I didn't think about. I was just kind of like, that's weird. I guess she can do that.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
That is the majority of the story.
Yeah.
I guess that's how it is.
Yeah. Though I was glad to, like, especially because I wasn't really getting a good sense for the price and, like, what they wanted or, like, what they were interested in. So once they got that moment, I was like, oh. And, like, you know, it also comes with, like, an element of, like, sacrifice even, because I don't think that, you know, whoever they choose for this mission, you know, it's not going to be great to, you know, get their wings burned off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like their intentions were pretty clear, even if they didn't, like, do anything yet.
Yeah.
I mean, like they said, you know, the mages are trying to mess with the key work, and their whole job is to stop them from messing with God's work.
Yeah. All right.
Do you want to talk about what we didn't like?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. Yeah.
Preparing yourself. I mean...
Yeah, it's so I'll go first. Sorry. I think that there's a lot packed into this that I really don't think needs to be there, honestly. You know, like, I think that there was, like I said before, in the parts that I did like, I think that the creator, you know, made a lot of, like, world building, you know, before just writing the story, and wanted to put that in. But, like, also even, like, smaller things, like, just don't really matter. Like, why did we follow the witness, the fiance? Like, I mean, maybe it just shows the danger of the Constantine priest, but, like, I don't know, we could have done that somewhere else, you know?
I mean, we already saw
it. It did not need to be dragged out, if that was the point.
Yeah.
Like, it got so many scenes.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to figure out some way to defeat it, or even just hurt it once before dying.
I know
He
him.
didn't really gain new knowledge.
Right. Like, him escaping is like, he did that once. I would have wanted him to, like, continue.
Yeah.
Well,
Continue
it's
surviving.
also, you know, he's just part of, like... So overall, like what you're saying, Cody, the book kind of fails to become more than the sum of its parts. Like, it's so many different references. Like, I could feel, I was like, okay, we're Star Wars now, right? That's what we are.
Yeah.
And we're also a bunch of other things I've seen before, like Mutant Project, Virus, Space, Angels, not Angels. I was just like, what? How does this all come together? I think I was actually pretty fine with that if it felt like the world building kept telling me it was certain ways, and then it wouldn't show that properly. Like, the fact that we mistook the family for a suburban family. It's like, but we're all ruled by mages, by the way. And also there's the prize, who do we even know they exist? Like, I guess we do, because Claudio's just drawing them. But it just looks like an average high school. And that goes along with Patrick being, like, chased by the priest. Like, his solution is to get a Glock. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, is this... Do people ever have to fight against the priest? Like, have they ever considered it? Like, do they know anything about them?
Yeah. And also, like, I don't know, maybe this is, like, even a nitpick, but it's, like, the kind of galactic geography, I guess, if you want to call it that, is, like, very unclear, because, like we were saying, you know, that, like, pretty much at the beginning it just seems like normal Earth, and also, like, they're attacked by the Jersey Devils or whatever, so I'm like, okay, New Jersey. And I think it also, like, at some other point in the story, it puts them in New Jersey, basically.
But then they have to get on a big spaceship to go to Paris.
Exactly.
Earth.
Yeah. So I'm like, what? Did New Jersey colonize the planet?
Wait, that's really good.
No, there was an old Jersey planet that was just called Jersey.
Yeah.
And then that got deserted.
So yeah, that just got really confusing.
Yeah.
As far as that.
I think my issue with this book can be summed up as like the writer assuming the audience of knowledge that we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Because
why do I care about the flies?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like in general, like what I'm confused about is like how did we get here?
Yeah.
Because there seems to be like kind of like cultural understandings that like aren't being made clear, like I don't like the priests and how that all came to be. Like you kind of have to piece that together.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Mariah, it's like, well, what makes her so special?
Yeah.
Like how does she get to the position of, like, what makes her tick?
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't really understand that. How did the KBI, like, how did they get separated? How are they hidden? Like, we don't understand that. And so
why were they made? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so there's a lot of things where I was reading this, I was like, this can't be the first book.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and I had already looked to make sure that this was the first book, and then I like looked again. I was like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, like I mean, they've made prequel materials now, but still, it's like this was the first to come out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it does really feel like, you know, when they're explaining stuff, like the few times that they do explain certain things, it feels like, oh, we're just catching you up if you didn't read the previous stuff. You know, it never feels like this is new information, and it might be hard for you to like, you know, grasp. So like, let's help you through it a little bit.
And
it includes a lot of like little scenes and details, like Mayo Defton Wolf getting replaced by whatever Admiral Wheeler Crom, and like that's an intense scene, or it's supposed to be like. Yeah. But I don't know these people at all.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with that. With like just even the rebellion being quenched, it was like I guess that like that's supposed to be very intense.
Yeah.
But I don't feel it.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the humans actually suffer under the mages, have we?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, that like all of these characters get like moments in the sun, but usually that's actually like indicative of them leaving the story. And it's before we even really get to know them. Like, you know, it'd be one thing if it was like, you know, it was written in such a way where it's like, oh, now I feel like I really know this character. And then like, you know, rip them away from you. But it's like, no, like we get to know Josephine, and then she gets attacked, and then she dies. We definitely don't get to know the twin characters. They just die.
We get one scene with Claudio being saved from bullying by his girlfriend, and him being kind of shy around his girlfriend, and then running off.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like we already said with Mayo Wolf, and I mean even like I feel like, you know, so this is the thing. Another problem that I had was just that I was never really sure who the main character was supposed to be. Like we have all. I
thought they were gonna kill the kids off and just make the parents the main characters.
Right, exactly. And like I guess technically they are the main characters, but we get all of these perspective switches that like, you know, feel personal enough that it's like, okay, we're following this person. And like essentially like this almost operates as a prequel in and of itself, even though it is like, you know, the first thing that you're supposed to read and all of that. But like really the next volumes, like after this, or I guess after the second stage Turbine Blade, because there's like, you know, this is volume 1 of that story, and then there's volume 2 that I think still have Coheed and Cambria, but they eventually die, and then the story is about Claudio. He is the main character after that.
Okay.
But I only learned that.
I guess it feels like unfocused then, right? That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, very unfocused, I would say.
Yeah. And I didn't even, like, this is something that confused me as I was reading it. So, like, you start the book with the being 6 years after the main story's events. But they don't tell you that when the story begins. They just say it's 6 years after the something.
Yeah. They don't make it clear that this is
Yeah.
supposed to be like a flashback kind of thing.
Because they just jump into
Yeah.
the Beast waking up in his sleep, and they don't say, "Oh, 6 years ago."
Yeah, and because we haven't been introduced to the Inferno and the fact that he's brother of the Beast slash Coheed, they look similar enough too that you're like, oh, that's just him, know.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that I did realize, like, basically it was fine for me because I just forgot about that beginning part.
Yeah.
And then so it's like, okay, that's the beginning. And they're like, oh yeah, I got to the end. That's right. We started this thing off with the 6 years later thing.
So like, I got to the end and saw that it was like 6 years. I was like, 6 years after what? And then I was like, I don't remember a lot of this book, so I need to reread it again. And then that's when I noticed, oh, we started off 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so responsible of you. It's like, guess I'll read it again.
Yeah.
Well, I also looked back through it. Like, I didn't read it again, but I was just like, I'll just flip through the pages because I kind of know what happens.
I wrote down some great notes. The amount of times we go see Wilhelm Ryan and he's being like evil boss style of like, you have disappointed me.
Yeah.
But and they're like, Wilhelm Ryan's evil plan continues. And like Inferno's like, we must stop it. I'm like, what is it? What is the evil plan?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I'm like, okay, so you're already at the top of the power structure, literally. So, like, what reason do you have for destroying the keywork? Like, I mean, I'm not...
all the planets together, yeah.
Yeah, like...
I see it as a couple of different things. And I'm not sure which one it is. So, like, it sounds to me like, I think from the rebellion standpoint, Wilhelm Ryan is trying to separate Sector 12 from the Heaven's Fence. There is that.
Right.
But then also, Ryan makes reference to the book of whatever.
The prophecy thing.
Yeah, which talks about the son of three, which presumably is Claudio.
Right, because he's the son of the KBI, basically.
Yeah. And
Oh,
so,
that's weird.
but like, none of those are like, I guess, chosen as like, this is the reason.
But also the prophecy is that God's gonna like destroy everything, right?
So that's also one of those things. I think in the mythos, that's the question. The question is, and I think they phrase it as like, when God comes to remake the face of man,
if man should decide to dabble in my affairs, then guardians must intervene. But should I come forth to change the face of man with you there to challenge me, then I shall return with the stars to destroy all I have made. And I'm not going to give a warning or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's the question, which is kind of confusing because it's not a question.
Yeah, so, like, basically it's, like, wondering whether, like, so it's saying that, guard against man, like, messing with the keywork, but there might be a time when I have a chosen man, a chosen one man, and you should help him.
That you got there faster than I did.
I mean, it took you explaining it first. But now I get it. Yeah. And you won't know the difference though. So, you just kind of have to guess. Yeah. Good stuff. Also, another like kind of thing that was just like, hard to understand. First of all, this is just a mistake on my part. I thought this was called the Amory Wars.
Yeah.
It's, Amory Wars. I'm just dyslexic and
I never realized the mistake. So they've always been the Armory Wars to me.
But then you're like, okay, what's a Amory then? And that's apparently the scientist that I can't remember if he created or discovered the keywork. He must have discovered it because like they're all like, God created the keywork.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Sirius? That one guy's Sirius?
Yeah, Sirius. Amory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, did we see him? Is he the one that made the bugs?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
that was
No, the astronomer and namesake of the stars discovered that the keywork is fueled by these stars.
Okay.
The stars of Sirius.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Generating the essential elements needed to sustain life on all planets.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
In which Ryan then sacrifices people to fuel the stars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Also, man, I'm forgetting what I was going to say now. I keep looking at Sirius's dumb face. He's so proud of himself for discovering those stars.
I mean, Shawinter, if you discovered a star, you're telling me you wouldn't name the star after you?
If I discovered the thing that, like, makes life possible on every planet, I'd be a little full of myself, too, I guess.
Yeah. Man, also, yeah, it's really hard for me. Like, I understand that it's like not every fictional world operates on, like, you know, our universe's like physics and all that stuff. But also I'm like, how are you guys like just in a triangle of stasis? Like, but also like you look like humans and stuff. Like, what is like? It just doesn't make sense that like you're just there and it's okay, I guess, that you're not moving. And like your sun, like basically like the suns are in one area always. Like, do you have night and day? You do have night and day because it happens in the story, but like how?
I mean, we could be in a giant triangle and never know it. You just have to zoom out really far.
I guess, but they make the triangle look like the planets are really close together too. Like,
I doubt that there's 78 planets in that picture.
No?
Can 78 be divided by 3?
Well, it's 78 plus
We're
7.
gonna calculate this.
78 can be divided by 3.
Oh, okay.
Why plus 7?
The 7 suns or stars.
Oh. Well, but that's not what... The heaven's fence is the 78 planets.
Oh. I thought that I thought that the planets and the stars were both in the grid, though.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
that's not how I understood it.
Okay. Maybe they're
There's
just...
12 sectors, 78 planets.
But get this, 12 sectors, but 78 cannot be divided evenly by 12. So, I don't
think about it.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. You're right.
Yeah,
What am I thinking?
Why did they choose these numbers? Yeah. I did notice, they really like the whole, like, rule of threes thing, like, you know, the...
Oh, yeah, the tri-mage.
Yeah, the tri-mage, the triangle, the KBI.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something else that's 3 people, but I forgot.
I thought of another thing I don't like. I don't feel like the characters' reactions were consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes, like... When they were talking to Inferno, the one part, like Cambria and Coheed, and Inferno was like, thinking to himself, like, I remember when, what do you mean? Like, I felt like things weren't properly communicated a lot of times, too.
Oh.
Like,
okay, yeah.
The moment when, let me finish first with the, I'm thinking about 2 different thoughts now. The fact that they weren't consistent, and also the fact that things weren't communicated properly. They weren't consistent, so Cambria being shown as, like, angry at times, but, like, she never came off as actually angry until she destroyed the, like, ship core.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'm full of this, and, like, destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, like, totally normal, like, 5 seconds ago. It didn't show her, like, building up to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other part that I was talking about where things weren't communicated properly really, really was apparent to me in Coheed talking to them. He finds out he's part of the KBI, and then him coming home and, like, sadly looking at the briefcase. I was like, what's in the briefcase? And then him sadly bringing those drinks to his kids. Like, was I supposed to know that he had a choice to poison his children or not? Like, I didn't get that. He was given the briefcase, I'm assuming, from Mayo.
Yeah.
I mean, I did see the panel where that
But they don't hand it off at any point. They're
They-
just like, you're part of the KBI. You're a danger. And then he goes home and he's like, I'm a danger. And Cambria's like, I know. We should die to be with our kids. And I was like, wait, what?
No, it says, please. So this is like as Coheed is getting out of the car with Mayo. Please take this case. It may help you in deciding how your children shall pass. Good day, Mr. Kilgannon.
I missed that extremely essential single panel. Hey, by the way, here's a poison.
Yeah.
Have fun.
I mean,
Also,
no.
the other part is when they realize they've been betrayed. Cambria's like, oh my god, like she senses what they're gonna do to Claudio.
Yeah.
Which, like, you just hit your daughter over the head with a hammer, like, and now you're mad that your son's gonna get shot.
Yeah.
And she's like, you betrayed us. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, of course they did, but also, how did you figure that out?
Right.
So, like, and on top of that, when the Beast was asked where his son was, his question was, what are you going to do with him? I'm like, what do you mean?
We're gonna let him live.
What do you mean? There's only... What did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just... I was like,
Yeah.
what? So, yeah, very inconsistent, I felt like.
Yeah. I will also say that, like, another one of those things where it's like things aren't communicated properly was when the Beast came home. Cambria already knew what was up, but his response to her saying, like, I know what happened, he was like, why didn't you tell me? We could have hid them. I'm like, she found out when you did. unless she already knew.
I think the partial thing of what she's trying to say was she's like, I've always been able to sense when you were going to come home and this and that. Like, I guess I've always intuitively known these things, but never realized I had powers. But you're right that it, like, doesn't translate really well to Coheed being like, should have told me.
Yeah. I said earlier that I didn't realize that Cambria was part of the KBI until much later. But, like, yeah, her powers were, like, really baffling, partially because of that, where I was just like, why do you have powers? And, like you know, and like, you know, that paired with, like, you know, basically being, like, kind of confused by them, like, coming up, and then just knowing, just being like, okay, yeah, that's right, I remember now everything, but not having any, like, in-between realization of that.
I didn't really... I wonder if it's a visual thing where they didn't communicate it properly visually.
Yeah. I mean, certainly with, like, Mayo Wolf asking Cambria, or, like, you know, when, like, she saw that they were going to try and kill her son, like, visually, I was very confused as to what was going on. But only reading it the second time, I realized that, because she can read minds, like, she was reading his mind at that point.
Also, yeah, okay, we can't get into the art yet.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, the whole thing with Patrick, like, running away, we discussed how, like, we don't feel that came to any sort of conclusion that was helpful to the story.
Yeah.
My God, Patrick got more screen time than Claudio, I feel like.
Yeah, he kind of did. And also, like, all this backstory, too. Like I was saying to Taylon, like, you know, he has, like, this, like, mysterious past and stuff like that. And, like, why? Why does he have that? Like, what was even the point? Like, he could have just, like, been like, I guess I'll, like, pawn off my stuff and buy a gun from a gun store. Like,
Patrick was so important that he gets mentioned by, like, the emperor of the universe.
Yeah.
Wilhelm Ryan is like, we must take care of this witness. I'm like, is this what's gonna ruin your plan? Is one human? I was like, man, you guys are kind of weak.
Yeah.
I mean, all evil emperors, you know?
And then they just send, like, a big monster after him. I was like, was that even necessary? Like, if they're in control, wouldn't they just be like, FBI, arrest him?
Yeah, honestly, like just arrest him and put him in like, prison,
So
Yeah.
I get no sense of like what actual control the mages have, like that is oppressing everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean,
Because if Patrick
Yeah.
is a threat, doesn't that make the entire like resistance an extreme threat? Like, I mean, I guess they
Right.
are, but
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they say sometimes they do give again like in the text, kind of like ways that like things are bad. Like I think that when Mayo Defenwolf goes and meets with the Emperor, they're all like a cart of dead bodies is pulled by a horse or something. But it's like still that's
yeah, suddenly we're in a bloodborne village.
yeah. It's like I guess this planet really sucks to be on.
Yeah. Well, it's
Coheed and Cambria were doing fine though in their
Yeah.
well,
New
it's
Jersey suburb.
it's the it's Ryan's hometown, so death everywhere. Makes sense.
Yeah. Like
I
I don't know.
love his name is Ryan.
Yeah. I like I guess again, I do not like this. I think that it should have been like better explained in a way, but I could see it being like, okay, if you take like, the 78 planets and just like kind of be like, that's like, countries in the world, and some countries are better to live in than others, but we all like, we are all kind of controlled by the ruling class, kind of thing. That kind of makes sense, but that's me adding in text, not
Yeah.
not getting it from the text.
True.
Yeah.
And this is just one of those things that I was thinking about as I was talking about, like, assuming knowledge that the audience doesn't have, like, where the priests are, or the price, or prize, are considered, like, the failures. But we also don't know why. Like, and we, like, I think I get, like, they messed up in the Mage War, but also, what's the Mage War?
Yeah.
We'll
That's
never
not explained.
tell.
Yeah. Gosh. Also, another thing too was just a very simple problem of like everything, despite things being underexplained, the events that are literally happening in the book get over-explained through the text. Like, there's so many narration text boxes that are just unnecessary. Like, I like covered them up and like read it, and I was like, yep, that's exactly the same. It's like very like, just like old school, comic problem of, not trusting the art to tell the story. Which, like, I mean, granted, Claudio Sanchez, the writer and creator, this is essentially his second crack at writing comics or specifically writing this comic. He actually wrote 2 issues of this story and got them produced as comics. But then, basically realized that there was like, it was poor quality, poorer than he wanted, and so made it again and made the whole like 10 issues later on. But yeah, his main profession is being in a band, which I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning that this is a tie-in material to his band's albums. The first one being the second stage, Turbine Blade.
Yep.
So yeah, that it makes sense that the writing is like kind of rough sometimes, but yeah,
It is a lot about aesthetics.
Yeah, and then I think the last.
I should say I also listened to some of the like songs, and I noticed some of the song names. Did you see them?
Some of them, yeah.
The New Jersey Devils, and then onwards.
Yeah. I kind of wondered too. There was like, are you just, for the things that I felt like didn't need to be there, was it just like, okay, well, we have a song that's about this, like we need to make sure that we make a scene that's about it too.
Yeah, like a name drop.
Well, from what I've read, I don't know if this is specifically the Wikipedia, probably, but like the songs in it of themselves like reference each other.
Right. Yeah.
Because they in themselves are a story. However, the whole mythos of this book isn't explained through those songs. Like,
yes, yeah, you are correct about that. There is a story in Claudio Sanchez's mind already, and then he makes the songs about them, but the songs are not the complete story. To get the complete story, you read the comics and 2 novels, I think.
I'm shocked that there are novels.
Yeah.
I did read that in the Wikipedia, and I was like, okay, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so I can't remember where I was going with that, but
My bad.
that's all right. Yeah, there's wow, really, where was I going? I thought I could get back on there. Getting back to the I guess I'll jump on with something that I didn't like. And kind of my last thing was that I felt like there was also some unneeded brutality, Like, I mean, I've read other comics where it can be like fairly like bloody and brutal, and like oftentimes this didn't even show the violence, but it was more of the content of the implied violence, I guess. Like, I mean, I just didn't feel like Josephine needed to be sexually assaulted, like, that
yeah. Like,
I mean, also the story didn't care either that she was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the point.
Pretty much right afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. Like, there are times when it's, like when you're telling that kind of story to have it happen, and then the story cares about it, But this was completely unnecessary because, nothing happens as a result of it. And then to a lesser extent, just like all of like, some of the like killing that happens like aboard the ship and
Coheed and Cambria being like, we're angry because you made us kill our children, and like the guards getting the chance to like go, I have kids too, please don't kill me, and then being like, don't care, and like ripping out their heart or whatever they do.
Crushing their skull with mental powers, slicing their heads into pieces.
It's like, am I supposed to be rooting for them?
Yeah. Really, lots of just and then also like on top of that, like so like we said, Josephine does get sexually assaulted, and then the Red Army is there at the house, and they like 2 of them are like talking about like, oh, I wish that I could like essentially sexually assault her, it's like what is this
chance at that.
What is this like obsession with her, like it's just gross. So that was really uncomfortable too. It was like, why are we talking about this?
I definitely was like, man, this I probably shouldn't give it so much of an excuse of being like, comics of this time, I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There were so many butt shots. like female characters. It wasn't like only on their butt, but it was like so clearly like we would not get this if it was a dude scientist wearing a lab coat.
Yeah.
Like even the scientist lady bringing Josephine, that's the one I'm thinking of, where like before she's coming in, we just get like a whole backside shot of the most tight-fitting astronaut suit I've ever seen.
I mean, honestly, like I felt that way with the priests, and like I don't know, just like Like, I get they're angels, but you don't wear
Oh,
clothes.
you mean the prees?
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah, sorry.
I thought you said the priest. I was
Yeah, that's what.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, you know, they are like essentially like naked.
just nude.
Yeah.
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 Like, I mean, I guess they like you could just interpret it as like a skin tight bodysuit, I guess, since like, you know, they're like covered, I guess, but not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I was like, there's so much accentuation where it's like, calm down.
Yeah. Why?
So in my head, and I don't mean this as an insult, but like in my head, I think like this would fit the persona of like someone who's in a rock band making a comic. I could see where they would go.
Yeah.
That way.
Oh, I think you have like heavy metal comics
Yeah.
they used to do.
But I don't know, is the band like metal? I haven't looked them up actually.
They're I'd say that they are more like punk. Like
Yeah. I was mostly talking about like history-wise of like tie-in comics.
Yeah. Like the heavy metal comics brand, I guess. Heavy metal magazine.
Oof.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying about that. Also, but speaking of like kind of the matchup between the music and stuff, before I realized that Claudio was named after the lead singer and writer of it, I thought like because, you know, I again interpreted the main characters of these books to be Coheed and Cambria, and that is the name of the writer, Claudio's band. And so I kind of was like, okay. So I associated him more with Coheed, you know. I was like, that's, you know, and then I listened to the music and I was kind of like, this doesn't sound like how I thought Coheed would sound. And then I was like, okay, that's because he's Claudio. That's his, like, you know, POV more. But yeah, it was like, you know, that was kind of like a confusing thing too, where I'm like, the band is called Coheed and Cambria, so like it should be all about them, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. Who knows though?
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, though, yeah, I think that's kind of everything. You know, I feel like we really covered and agreed about what was kind of lacking in this. Did you guys have anything else?
Not really.
All right, then we'll move on to the art. Yeah, so the art changed after issue 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not notice that.
Yeah, it was a pretty similar style, I would say, but it's Gus Vasquez in the first 2, and then Mike Miller in the last 3.
I think I liked the first style first.
Interesting.
Yeah, I liked it better. Just because it was very of its time, but it was nostalgic in that way. Very fun, chunky kind of forms.
Yeah, I think that in some ways I liked it for, you know, kind of having more of a distinct style, like, you know, especially in like some of the faces and reactions. But I think that I appreciated the issues 3 through 5 art for being a little bit cleaner and easier to read. Yeah, it's kind of my feelings on it, because yeah, that chunky style is really rough on me, where I'm just like but you are right, it is the style of the time too in a lot of ways, and they don't get rid of it either, you know. So that's one thing that I didn't really like enjoy about the art, but like, you know, that was more of like personal preference than anything, whereas like it's just chunky. But yeah, I think that also I never felt like, you know, there was much thought given to layout. It was just kind of like I mean, it was easy to not notice, but like as far as like pacing and all of that, it just kind of seemed like pretty basic. What did you say, Shawanta?
Standard.
Yeah, standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It got the job done, but did not, really add too much.
Yeah. And, like, for me, like, I don't have much to say about the art and, like, the art, I guess. But in the idea of conveying information, that's where I found it lacking. Mm-hmm. And I had mentioned this before of, like, when in that scene where Mayo Defton Wolf is talking to Cambria and he basically gives her these images of what he's going to do to Claudio.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't catch that that's what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like nobody edited it, like checked to make sure that everything was lining up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess if you've wrote it and you read it, you're like, yep, makes sense.
Yeah. And then there are, what I also noticed, and then this is particularly at one point where they're when the whole family's in the kitchen, and Cambria asks Coheed if he's like taking out the trash or something like that, and like the way that those dialogue bubbles were laid out, it was like it didn't read like she asked the question and then he answered it. Mm-hmm. And then because then like in the middle of it was a child saying something.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. I saw that specific scene too, and I was like, if you read that wrong, which is kind of easy to do, that's kind of a funny response. Like, I don't remember exactly how it went, but yeah, I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or yeah, that's right. We have a lot to do today. And then she says "co" as in Coheed, but it kind of looks like "go." Are you going to fix the trash compactor? And then the kid says, "Yes, mommy."
Yeah.
A great kid.
Yeah. And then Coheed says, "I'll get to it after work, I promise."
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely the bubble layout. I think there was a couple of other less distinct times where I was like, okay, I read this, then this, you know? Like, and also, yeah, I agree with you as far as like communicating information through the art. You know, there was times where I was like, what's going on? Man, sorry, this is like not really related to the art that much, but it's just because I was looking back at that one panel that we were just talking about, I just realized that there was like government agents listening in.
Yeah.
I completely just forgot about that part because it didn't seem relevant. I understand now. Well, no.
I don't.
Yeah, no, it isn't relevant.
I don't think they get brought up at all.
Yeah. Why were they there? Are they just always monitoring that family? Like,
I mean, if you're, you know, an escaped bio weapon, something.
Yeah.
I don't know why they even let them play house.
Yeah, very confusing. Yeah. All right, but anyway, so yeah, that's you know, I think everything about the art. Also, like, I think sometimes too, backgrounds don't get a lot of attention. You know, like, I mean, purposefully, I guess, but like for time saving, and I'm just like, I don't know, it just doesn't help any, you know, where it's like, wow, these are really simple, huh? They're just colored backgrounds on this one. Yeah. But overall, in some ways, like, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Spawn.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, so since we've covered Spawn, I've talked to a lot of people who like Spawn. And basically, what it comes down to is that people don't really care about the story that much. They pretty much just like seeing Todd McFarlane's art. And I'm like, oh, okay. But the thing about this is that I'm not really impressed that much with the art at all. So, yeah, it doesn't really even have that going for it.
I mean, I guess I can see that. Because Todd McFarlane's art, I think, is really cool. Well, I guess I should clarify specifically with Spider-Man. Yeah. I don't I'm sure it's probably very similar all around, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't, like, I was like, it's fine in Spawn, but, like, you know, I can understand why people like it. You know, Spawn can look cool, a lot of the character designs, you know, and the villains and all that stuff.
No, I get, okay, yeah. I can also say I like the art in Spawn. Okay. I can say that. Yep.
Yeah. But it does not push me to read more Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to this book, yeah, the story and the art don't really push me to read more. I will say, when doing research about, like, you know, the story overall, I saw that one of the volumes is co-written by Peter David, who is a professional comic book writer. And also they change artists like all the time for this series. So maybe other volumes, you know, get a little bit more streamlined. Could be interesting. But this first issue definitely seemed like it could have gone through more editing, as Shweta said.
For sure.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about reading more, I guess? Because I kind of feel like that was also that part of the show for me.
Yeah, I feel like I could enjoy it, but I still is like I'd have to get over I'd have to like still have that initial I need to make myself read it. Like so then I'm like, no, not really. Not interested in reading more. But
Yeah.
But you wouldn't drag your feet if you had to.
I would say there would be a little bit of a dragging of feet.
Just a little bit.
But I feel like I'd get over it. So
I
But,
mean,
yeah.
by the end of the series, you know, I really, before we started the show, I mentioned how I started to enjoy the series as it went through, because I realized kind of nothing mattered, and whatever wanted to happen was gonna happen. And I started to yell whenever the characters would yell.
It really does help.
Yeah, maybe I should try that.
I mean, every time, like, the names, like,
Yeah.
the name of the main villain is Wilhelm Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, every time he came on screen, I would yell his name. And same with Mayo Deftonwolf. And so I'd be like, oh my god, Mayo! You know, really getting excited for the characters showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just being in the right frame of mind for it. I'm like, I think I am too attached to making things make sense in the story.
Mayo's my favorite character.
Wait, did you say I am my favorite character?
No, Mayo.
Mayo.
Oh.
Mayo.
Yeah.
The moment he showed up, he goes, hi, I'm Mayo Deftonwolf. I was like, yes. So I guess, you know, although I am the same as Talon, where I'm like, don't really want to read more. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I would drag my feet less, I guess, because as long as they keep the awesome names, like, I need more awesome names like that.
Yeah.
Supreme Evil Leader Ryan.
Yeah.
It took me a bit to understand that Tri-Mage was like a reference to the fact that there were mages. I was like,
It still didn't make sense to me, because I was like, did he absorb 2 other mages into himself?
right? Yeah.
Also, man, yeah, I think so. I jumped ahead a little bit to volume 2. I think that I like the art better in volume 2. You know, and also, like I was saying, like, problems with, like, or not problems, but just like
Oh yeah, way better.
boring, you know, kind of panel layout. They do a little bit more with that even. And camera angles, like there's a close-up on Coheed's eyes as they're being like pulled open by machines. It's kind of cool. But
This is kind of the nostalgia art that I'm like, this is it.
yeah. But like also, yeah, there's like just like more like crazy stuff. Like Coheed gets basically turned into Doomsday.
Interesting.
Like the Superman character. Yeah, so like just it continues with doing what it wants to do for the sake of cool. But I think it looks better, so that's nice.
Oh yeah. That's real nice.
Yeah. So
That might have redeemed itself.
But yeah, any other final thoughts before we end the show? No?
I would say like I feel like how do I put this? I think this book is like has good fundamentals and
That helps a lot. Oh
Yeah.
my god, they were dragging
What?
wait, have you been talking this whole time?
me.
Yeah.
No, my internet was bad, sorry.
Oh, okay.
What did you say though?
The dragonflies, because it's the Cambrian period reference,
Oh.
Oh.
I think.
I thought they were referring to the font when they named her Cambria.
That's right.
See, the moment she came on screen, they're like, this is Cambria. I'm like, but like the Cambrian period? Dinosaurs? I don't
I
think
can see
dinosaurs
that.
existed then.
I was like really like the font type.
And I had no thought. So,
Anyway,
like, I'll say, like, I think the book has good fundamentals. It's just, I think that with more, like, practice at it, like, it had been executed better.
yeah, I guess I think I see what you're trying to say, but I would say it differently, which is that like I think that, you know, it's actually lacking the fundamentals of like comic making as like an art form, but it does have good elements to its story. Yeah, but it does need, you know, more practice and you know, which I mean, you know, if you go to the back of the Ultimate Edition and look at like, you know, the first 2 issues of the story originally, I think that it made a lot of progress. I mean, it's the art is like, it's kind of hard to like separate the art though, because it's like, okay, that's not the writer, you know, getting practice. That's, you know,
yeah.
But also, you know, there's a lot of, you know, writing stuff too that I think is better. Anyway, though, yeah, I agree with you, Taylor. All right, I think that's all we have for the rest of our show. I'm Cody.
I'm Talon.
And I'm Shawenta.
And this has been The Comic Panel. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, or Podbean. You can support this podcast by sharing it with anyone you know and by rating and reviewing our podcast. You can also reach out to us with any thoughts you have on the things we talk about on Twitter at TheComicPanel1 and on Instagram and Facebook at The Comic Panel. We appreciate your feedback and look forward to sharing many more comic thoughts with you. Have a blessed day.